And I know what I'm trying to do, because it's not like I'm just trying to win and get elected. I'm trying to change the course of history. And our history in this country hasn't been good for the last 100 years, whether it's our drift into managing an empire, a destruction of our currency, the deficits that have been run up, the climax of the dollar reserve standard. This is big stuff, and nobody else is addressing this.
If Rick Santorum and when Rick Santorum is president, Iran will not get a nuclear weapon, because the world as we know it will be no more.
Congressman Paul, 30 seconds.
You've heard the war propaganda that is liable to lead us into the sixth war, and I worry about that position. Iran is a threat because they have some militants there, but believe me, they're all around the world, and they're all around the world, and they're not a whole lot different than others. Iran does not have an air force that can come here. They can't even make enough gasoline for themselves. And here we are, building this case out. Please, they're building up this case just like we did in Iraq. Build up the war propaganda. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and they had nuclear weapons, and we had to go in. I'm sure you supported that war as well. Okay. It's time we quit this. It's time. It's trillions of dollars we're spending on these wars.
I'm sorry to hear that.
My question for you is, will you arrest me and my doctors if I get medical marijuana?
I'm not in favor of medical marijuana being
So will you have me arrested?
How are you?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Will you please answer my question?
Will you have? Wait, are you not going to answer his question, Governor?
I think I have. I'm not.
No, he asked you if you were going to arrest him. He asked if you were going to arrest patients like him, Governor.
If you could tell me how you are a better candidate for the medical marijuana patients like myself.
I would absolutely never use the federal government to enforce the law against anybody using marijuana.
Congressman Paul, I've heard him now in many debates talking about bringing our troops home and about the war in Iraq and how it's failed. And I want to tell you that kind of isolationism, sir, is what caused World War II. You allowed Hitler to come to power with that kind of attitude of isolationism and appeasement. Okay. Just finished having Thanksgiving with the troops, and their message to you is, the message of these brave men and women who are serving over there is, let us win. Let us win.
The real question you have to ask is, why do I get the most money from active duty officers, military personnel? So what John is saying is just totally distorted. He doesn't even understand the difference between non-intervention and isolationism. I want to trade with people, talk with people, travel, but I don't want to send our troops overseas using force to tell them how to live. We would object to it here, and they're going to object to us over there.
Staying on this issue.
You're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is the debt ceiling. Tell us your thoughts and what needs to be done about it.
We need to fix it so we can't go higher. If we put a debt ceiling and live up to it, Congress will have to spend less money. Simple as that. So I'm positively opposed to raising the debt ceiling, and I have voted against every debt ceiling increase since I've been in Congress, and that's a big flaw to say, well, you can endlessly spend and borrow and keep raising the debt limit. There's a debt limit there for a reason. Let's try to get the Congress's attention to live within their means.
In fact, out of almost 17,000 votes cast, you were, 150 or so away from number one. But the Wall Street Journal and others say you can't win. Why? Why do they believe that?
Well, they want to believe it, and they want to promote an idea. They don't want to promote information, because there have been a couple of polls where I either came in first or second when you match my name up against Obama, because my views really compete. And this would be a reason the Democrats don't want me to win either, because I can compete against Obama, because his base is very unhappy with his expansion of the war and his lack of interest in protecting civil liberties, and therefore they don't want to hear from me either. But I have done quite well. I'm quite willing to match my name up against Obama any time of the day.
aid is all worthless. It doesn't do any good for most of the people. You take money from poor people in this country and you end up giving it to rich people in poor countries. And they're used as weapons of war, so you accomplish nothing. We should export maybe some principles about free markets and sound money, and maybe they could produce some of their own wealth. But this whole idea of talking about the endless wars and the endless foreign aid, it seems like nobody cares about the budget. I mean, we're in big trouble, and nobody wants to cut anything. So if you're going to keep sending foreign aid overseas and these endless wars that you don't have to declare and go into Libya without even consulting with the Congress, the biggest threat to our national security is our financial condition. And this is just aggravating it.
You can't have a government like this without an income tax, but we don't want a government like this. This is not the kind of government that was designed by our founders of the country. It's not what was written in the Constitution.
I don't see that we have the authority to all of a sudden impose our system of justice across the entire world. I do not think it's effective. I think it drums up more anti-American hostility more than it achieves justice.
It has nothing to do with national security. Matter of fact, our national security is more jeopardized by permitting this to happen because we're liable to start a war.
Our foreign policy of military interventionism has brought us death and destruction to many foreign lands and loss of life for many Americans.
And if we ignore that at our own risk, that if we think that we can do what we want around the world and not incite hatred, then we have a problem.
There's nothing wrong with what the founders talked about. They talked about having friendships and trading, getting along with people, and staying out of the entangling alliance in the internal affairs of foreign nations when it's none of our business.
Shannon Bream has the next round of questions on social issues. Shannon.
Thanks, Brett. Congressman Paul, in 2007, in an interview, you were asked, should gays be allowed to marry? You said, quote, sure, they can do whatever they want and call it whatever they want. Are you advocating legalizing gay marriage in this country?
I think the government should just be out of it. I think it should be done by the church or private contract, and we shouldn't have this argument. Who's married and who isn't married? I have my standards, but I shouldn't have to impose my standards on others. Others have standards, and they have no right to impose their marriage standards on me.
So if you are not for immigration reform, if you do not agree with the idea that the children of undocumented immigrants should become automatically U.S. citizens, how are you going to get 35% of the Hispanic vote if you become the Republican candidate? I mean, it would be almost impossible, as you know.
Well,
most Hispanic voters don't agree with you.
For me to think that I have to have a different message for Hispanics than I do for other people, I think is unnecessary. I think that Hispanics have as much interested in freedom as everybody else. So to say that I have to kowtow in a sense of saying, well, the only way you can get a vote for any special group, is by giving special privileges. I don't want to punish anybody because they belong to a group, but nobody should get a special privilege either.
Dr. Paul, I'd like to begin with you. Every debate begins with a specific policy question, but this is a little different. Someone on this stage hopes to be able to take the oath of office 14 months from now, and at the end of that oath are the words, "So help me God." When you hear those 4 words, if you have the opportunity and the privilege to say them, what will come to mind?
Well, I think they're very important. We take, those of us who have been in Congress and served in government, we take an oath frequently. We take an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that's what we do when we take an oath when we're sworn in as president. We emphasize this, but I think what that does, it emphasizes it even more so because of the significance and the importance, and it reiterates the fact that we swear to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. And to me, this would mean that you're not only saying this, in front of a small number of people, not only in front of the nation, but before our God. which means the significance is that much greater. So those of us who have done this before, and I've taken my oath rather seriously, very seriously, and believe that I've done a very good job in upholding the Constitution, and even when sometimes it's difficult. And this to me would send a signal that by saying, "So help me God," I really will obey the Constitution and that law.